So we are going to discuss and learn the basics of animation in React Native. So this will be the final demo of what we will be building now. So let's understand how this thing will like how we should think when we want to animate something. So this will be our final result. So let us start from basics. I will comment the code out and will explain you. Okay, so you can see now here that a box is being displayed here. Okay, so this is the component justify content, align content for centering our box, and the box height and width is given and a background color is given. Okay, so now just forget about this animated dot view, consider it as just a view. Like it is view only, just think like that. Okay, so this is our function. Ignore the commented codes, right? So this is our function const prac for short for practice. This is the rendering of it, and this you can ignore all the things here. Okay, and this is we are exporting. So now we can see here. So what we want now, we want this box to rotate. Okay, so how can we rotate it? When we see here that there is a transform API, so within the transform API we can see here that boxes are being rendered if you consider only this component, right? So we can see that style.box, some box like the styling is given to this box, and the text original object, you can see original object. Okay, and then styles.text, ignore the styles, just think that the combined effect of these styles.box and styles.text is this thing. Okay, so when we will apply a transform onto it, then this object will change its orientation or its shape. Okay, so now consider this box, scale by the factor of 2. So we can see this is just the same old thing which was written above here also, and for the entire this parent component, the scale.2 component, just a small line, this line is added, and this makes changes to the original object. So transform and is an array of objects, and each object is contains a single key value property. Okay, so scale.2, when we come below, we can see here. So on scrolling it down, we can see here, see this thing. We want to rotate right, so we need to think in terms of rotation only. So rotate by 45 degree, just this thing, right? So you can see that multiple styles are applied here, styles.box and transform property. So we will just apply this property here on our we will come here and we will write this transform. Okay, notice I have just added this line, and now this line will rotate my box. See here, right? Now what we want, that this box should continuously rotate, right, dynamically. So when we want this, so we uh, if we think in terms of that, then we would be needed to build an array of values, where the values can be containing where the values could be containing like 0 degree, 30 degree, 45 degree, uh, 50 degree, and up to 360 degree, right? 360 degree. one complete rotation, and we will loop onto this value, right? When we will loop onto this value, so the transform property would be changing dynamically, and hence the box will be rotated, right? But that will be an infinite rotation, so we want that only. So what is the other way around of doing it? One way to do is like we will construct an array of 0 till 360 degree, and we will loop onto that array infinite number of times, and we will pass that values here in the transform, right? Like this rotate thing will be a dynamic value, this will be a variable which will be changing continuously, and hence the box will be rotated, right? So we need to think in some sort of that way, in this sort of way, okay? So now let's start with animation, how animation comes into picture. So what animation, if we will read about it onto the documentation here about animation dot timing. Yeah, so we can see that this timing animation dot time animated dot timing takes a value and a config object, where the config object we can see that this takes duration, easing, and other sort of values, right? Now uh, let's start with it. So what basically timing does is, timing, uh, you can think of it like it it gives a continuous range of values from a single value to a destination value, from the original value to a destination value, okay? We can think in terms of that. And so let's code it up. So it will be something like this: animated dot timing, okay? And this will take some value, and this will take, like, this value will change into this value, okay? So animated dot timing will change will change a value from its origin to its destination in a very easing format by following some sort of curve. Usually the curve is Bezier curve only, but we can also modify that Bezier curve by rotating the points, or by changing the points, and we will get a new polygon, and or a new curve, sorry, and onto that curve the values will be keep changing, okay? So those values will be reported here. So animated dot timing, what it does is basically transforms a value from a origin to its destination value, okay? Okay, so now it takes value into a certain format, not directly you can give a number here like 9 or 10. It takes a value into a certain format, and that format is given by this. So when we are using animation, we need to declare into we need to give the values into its own initialized format, right? So its initialization is given by this value, new animated dot value, okay? So we will initialize a position with this line, okay? New animated dot value, and when this, and now we will pass this value here, position, okay? Now we pass this value here, position, and we will tell it that to what number it will change. So to value we will write, and it will be changed to 20, okay? So this is what we are trying to think now. So we will be changing our value from 1 to 20, and timing will change it in a linear format usually, okay? So now the timing will give us a range of values. Now if we somehow pass those range of values into our into if we pass those range of values to the rotate key, then the transformation will be applied, and this thing will be rotated. Now how faster this thing will rotate will depend upon the values which will be passed into it. Like suppose if we pass the values as 0, 30, and then 80, so from 30 to 80 it will rotate immediately. However, if we pass very values which are very closer to each other, and many and we pass like thousand of values, then it will rotate very smoothly. So that's why we are using a timing function, so that it rotates very smoothly. Okay, but one more problem with rotate is here, like when we will check here for the transform thing, that rotate method in the transform. So rotate method takes a string only, right? You cannot pass a value here, it can take only a string. So we need some way to convert our generated number values into its corresponding string values, and those string values will be passed to rotate. Okay, and then it will rotate the things. So in order to do that, we will use that transform method. What I told you in the initially, that what transform does is it basically takes some value, a range of values, and transform it into the final destination values. Okay, so when the input range will be given 0, it will be giving 0 degrees. When it will be given 1, it will be giving 360 degrees. And if we will give some other value like 2, 3, or we will give 0.7, 0.1, then correspondingly we will get values like in a linear interpolation will be there. So if we want to really see, so what we can do here is, like, here the position value is mentioned, right? So we will here write 0. So when we will pass when we will initialize the position with 0, then on it being interpolated it will give 0 degrees. We can see here, just a second. You can see something has come up. Where is it? Yeah. Okay. Native driver is output is. Let's stop for some time. Animated. So for that, what we can do is we will comment it out, entire thing. Now this will not be printed. It is printing continuously. Okay, so what we can do, give me some time. Animated.ai. It is not going away, that's why I'm not able to show you. However, if we will find it somewhere, then certainly we will get what we are looking for. Anyways, it seems that I don't have that much knowledge that I can show you now. However, we will carry on with our thing. Just believe me that whenever the values will be changing from 0 to 1, these values will be correspondingly changed. Okay, so we will now rub it. So we will define an animation here, right? That this will be our position, and we want our position to change to 0 value will be changed to 1 value, and duration it will be taking some time, say 200 seconds, and it will start. this start function is called upon this. Okay, for this, for the time sake, let's remove this, and we will call this value. So when this thing will start, we will call spin function. Spin function will apply this animated dot timing onto it. Okay, start is written here so that this animation can start. Okay, and set values, like I'm setting the value for whatever the value may be, I'm setting it again, I'm setting it back to 0. We can comment it out for now time, for the time sake. Okay, so now that's how we do the animation. We pass our component the animated dot component name. Okay, and the style thing is very simple. Focus here, right? Transform. So what I was telling you, that for the rotate we can only give string format. However, we are getting the number format, numbers, array of numbers here, and we need to correspondingly map those array values into some sort of string value, so that we can pass here, and this will rotate it. Okay, so for that we will use interpolation, this thing, right? Okay, so we can see that this will rotate, but what we are doing, that we are saying that whatever the position we have, we will interpolate those values. When the value will go from 0 to 1, we will interpolate it from 0 to 360 degrees. Okay, so ultimately the rotate, like the output of this entire highlighted thing will be a single value, that will be a string between 0 degree to 360 degree. Okay, and that will vary upon the upon changing positions value, which will be changed by timing function. Okay, now when we will save it, we can see that it will start rotating, right? Now something to notice here, that it rotates only once and then it stops. Why this thing is there? Because we are calling the spin function only one time, right? If we will save again, we can see it rotates and then again it stops, because because we are calling it only once. However, if we some sort of develop a thing, or we write a code where this code continuously call backs this spin function, and again and again, then it will keep on rotating. Okay, so what we will do, we will call back this function like this. Okay, so this thing, so when the start when the animation starts and ends, it returns a true and a false value. Okay, so whether it returns true or it return false, we don't care about it. We just want to again call this method spin. Okay, so this is the callback method. Okay, and now one more thing is, like when we are calling it, so we need to again make sure that the value was 0, because if we will uncomment this, now let's see what will happen. It won't rotate, right? It won't rotate. Why it is not rotating? Because this timing function will make the value of 0 to 1, and then it will and then we will again call, and then this timing function will again change the position value from 1 to 1, because in the previous iteration it was rendered as 1. So now again we will be changing that value from 1 to 1, from 1 to 1. Okay, so when we will change that value from 1 to 1 itself, so this thing will not be changed, because at 1 it will be giving the same value, and since the value is same, so we see that it is not changing the orientation. The value needs to be dynamic, that's how it will rotate, right? So whenever we will call this thing, whenever we will call this function spin, we need to set the value back to 0. So once it rotates, it again sets the value to 0, and then again it converts to 1, and then again it sets the value to 0, and then again it converts back to 1. We will save it, and we can see it starts rotating. Okay, I hope I was able to explain you this concept. Thank you.